MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming. Welcome. This is Ramana Anamaraju, MedBix, host of the MedBix Webcast. I'm not Albert Einstein, but I'm pretty good. So, welcome here. We have a special program today. We have a very exciting guest, Dr. Madhu Shetti. She is a radiation oncologist. We're going to talk about a little bit about your profession and she's a founder of a company called Balmir. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then I will present a topic on space medicine. You know, all the people who are interested in space medicine fellowship, or what are the drugs and the devices that are coming from the space itself. That would be an interesting topic to know. So anyway, this is a very different kind of programming. What I do is interdisciplinary field. I bring a lot of medicine, mathematics, physics, technology, and art, philosophy, all of them in one place, and then combine interdisciplinary field. That's exactly what my advertisement says. But let me introduce our wonderful guest. Her name is Dr. Madhu Shetti. She's from her roots are from the same neck of my woods. So she's a radiation oncologist. She did a residency in Washington. She's practicing near Washington State of Washington, in Seattle, and then she's practicing now in the Bay Area. She's one of the partners in the Epic Care. Is one of the cancer care centers. So let me bring her. Welcome, Dr. Madhu Shetti. Welcome
Hi,
to the
thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today.
So tell me, I didn't explain a lot of your background. What is your background, and what is your little bit of give me some history of yours?
Of course. I was an attendee of a program at University of Michigan called Inaflex, and it was an integrated program to complete your undergraduate degree and your MD degree, because they were really trying to fill the physician shortage, especially in underserved and rural communities. So I was very fortunate to be able to be part of that program. And actually, during my summers, when I was a college student, I worked at a program called SEVA, which is Students Educating and Volunteering for Health Awareness. So we went to India and did anti-tobacco education programs, because a lot of the tobacco companies were moving to India to increase for new customers. And that's when I really started working with patients who had been diagnosed with cancer at early stages and really having disfiguring surgeries or complications afterwards. These were young adults in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And once they went through treatment, they oftentimes were dying because of malnutrition to become an oncologist and try to make a difference.
So I installed a new kind of audio system. It is giving a little bit of a strange problem.
Yeah.
But we are going to solve that problem.
And I'll tell you.
Let me ask you a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Can I tell you a little bit about why radiation oncology, even more about all the other types of oncology doctors too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. One of the things I found quite remarkable about the field of radiation oncology is the goal of treatment is to have organ preservation. So after someone's diagnosed with a cancer, can we treat them in a minimal surgical approach or even a non-surgical approach? And then after they've undergone treatment, which we treat over a small treatment every day over several weeks, the goal is when they're done with treatment that they should look and feel like their pre-treatment baseline. And I just love the idea of being able to help people get through a really difficult time. Remember themselves.
Okay, so if it gives me a hard time, I'm going to change my mic 1 second. If I can do that, just to let me see that if there is a problem there. Let me see if it makes any difference. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. I change it to the laptop, the regular
Okay.
channel. Let me. So you say that radiation oncology is very different than a medical oncology in
Very different.
what the complexities involved with radiation oncology compared to the other oncology, medical oncology.
Yeah. So when I was a child, I wanted to be an artist, and my mom said, "That's a good idea, but maybe get a degree that will pay your bills a little bit more easily." And I'm very glad I listened to her because now I can combine my love of medicine and art. And when we create radiation plans, each plan is custom designed for each patient. You cannot interchange the plans. And literally, I will draw out every structure of a critical structure in the area that I'm treating in every area that I want to treat. And then we create a plan by having radiation beams come in 360 degrees, each delivering millimeter dosages in each direction. So it's a unique way of integrating graphic design of computer technology and also a great deal of physics. And if you love working with a team, including dosimetrists, physicists, nurses, therapists, it's a great field for somebody who's perhaps very social and also likes that technology aspect of it. I especially talk to young kids who say, "Oh, I want to go into like tech or software or graphic design." I say, "Oh, let me tell you about a cool field that integrates every one of those things that you're looking at."
Dr. Shetty, I saw recently a news in CNN
Mhm.
that the rate of the cancer is increasing quite a bit, and
Yeah.
then more and more younger people under 30 years old, and
Yes.
they're getting affected. Do you see that trend in your practice?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, at some of those statistics that I see that are quite alarming to me are that roughly 40% of people will be diagnosed with cancer in his or her lifetime at this point, if you look at the cancer.org sites. And traditionally in the past, we used to think of cancer as an older person disease, something you were diagnosed with in your like late 60s, 70s, and so forth. But we have had significant rises in young adult cancer rates. Partly it's because of detection, but partly it's a variety of other factors. So, especially environmental and diet factors, we do see quite a bit more. For example, we see a significant rise in HPV virus infections, and when an individual has been exposed to that virus, they have a higher risk of developing HPV induced cancer. So you can get them in the head and neck cancers, especially in men. And we see it also in gynecological cancers like cervical cancer in women.
Is it because of the more sexual activity? If you don't mind saying that, is that
Yeah, so the risk of an HPV infection in nuns is like less than 1%. So yes, there is a correlation between the two.
okay? So
Thankfully, we can get vaccinated for it, and so we encourage as many young adults to try to get vaccinated and give themselves the best protection from those types of cancers later on.
would you highly recommend the HPV vaccine for young women to?
Absolutely, absolutely. Both of my children have received it.
Absolutely. That is a
Yeah.
big statement. So I wanted to ask you, what are the cancers that you see? You told me that there is a cancers that you see. One of the most prevalent cancers that you see in your practice and in general overall you come across.
I treat quite a few women with breast cancer, and it's actually a very interesting trend in the sense that before we used to see many more women that were had slower growing breast cancers diagnosed later in life. And now we're seeing far more triple negative breast cancers, which have a much more aggressive phenotype, and we're seeing it in much younger women. So, for example, at one point, I had multiple young women who were in their 30s who had very young children who were coming in for treatment, and they didn't know what to do because they couldn't send their children to daycare. while they're undergoing treatment and risk them getting infections. So I used to say, just bring them to me. I will watch them while you undergo treatment. It's a 10-minute treatment, and then take them back. But we had multiple strollers in our clinic because we had so many young women with young children who were coming in. And I think that's a testament to how we're seeing it much, much earlier, and with more aggressive pathology.
It is very sad. Let me ask the breast cancer, for example, it's a
Mhm.
detection itself is a challenging, right? Mammogram is not a big
Correct.
everybody has to go through MRI or something that is very expensive, and a lot of insurance companies don't even they don't even confirm they authorize that
It can be challenging. You're absolutely correct. So in younger women, oftentimes they have denser breast tissue, so it's harder to catch on a mammogram. And so screening becomes that much more important in terms of self breast exams, or if you have a family history, advocating for yourself so that you can get the imaging, especially an MRI at earlier time intervals to catch it earlier.
we need certainly a better advancements in the breast detection system. And I see
Absolutely.
some of the things are going on different places, but I'm not sure how far they're into far into
Mhm.
that one of the things is the temperature measurement on the breast. I saw that one of the in the mathematics side. But anyway, so let me ask you that if you are treating the breast cancer, is one of the outcomes are much better, even in the if they diagnose in the later stages, the outcomes are very good with the breast cancer nowadays. Is that right?
Absolutely. So if you are diagnosed with a breast cancer, stage 1, we have, over 90% overall survival rate. So a woman who is diagnosed with a stage 1 is more likely to pass from another condition and not from her breast cancer. So in that situation, we actually start thinking about what are the side effects from the treatment, because if she's going to live for potentially several decades afterwards, we have to be very mindful of the toxicity of the treatment and not just the survival, because she's going to outlive it. But those disabilities afterwards or complications can have a tremendous impact on their quality of life afterwards.
One of the cancers still challenging is the pancreatic cancer. That is still
Mhm.
very hard to deal with. Do you Steve Jobs from Stanford, that area that died? So it is still challenging. One of those challenging cancers, right?
It absolutely. So pancreatic is one of the most challenging of our cancers. Oftentimes, individuals are diagnosed much later, and at the time when it's unresectable. So that limits some of our options in terms of being able to give aggressive therapy. And then oftentimes, when patients come in with pancreatic cancer, they may have other complications or other medical conditions, which means they may not be the most fit going into treatment and be able to undergo those very aggressive therapies also. So it's a combination of factors that makes it very challenging.
I'm a physics guy. I need to ask that question. I learned the targeted tumors. Usually, is the best one is radiation oncology through photons, and now they are talking about a proton therapy and photon therapy. Tell me a little bit about this both, and how in the photon therapy itself there is a X-ray and then there is a gamma. Both the gamma knife. These are two kinds of a treatment there. So explain a little bit about those variations in those treatments.
Absolutely. I will put them into, shall we call, 3 bucket lists. So proton therapy works by delivering radiation. It's a different type of machine, a different type of linac that delivers it. It's great for circular tumors, that are perhaps deeper into the tissue surface. So, for example, prostate
These
cancer
are
is a
proton
perfect.
therapy, PR, right? Protons.
PROT, proton, yeah. A very clearly defined concrete, critical structure is perfect for proton therapy. Photon therapy, PHOTON, is good for a defined structure, but it's also very helpful for structures where you may need to give dose around it. So, for example, somebody that had a prostate treatment where they just needed radiation to the prostate, you can treat it with proton therapy. You can also treat it with photon therapy if you need to deliver dose to the lymph nodes or any other tissue around, in which case we need to carve the dose to a variety of structures. I think the big fascination in our field of is proton better or photon therapy, it, the data is coming out now and showing that for certain subtypes, very, very specialized types of cancers like pediatric cancers, proton therapy can be very beneficial. But the vast majority of Americans will have just as good, if not perhaps better, results with photon therapy because they're able to get the therapy close to home with all the supportive care resources at home. And because of how we have so much longer experience at many of the centers, the teams at any individual center will have more experience to make sure the physical radiation is delivered to the very top levels of care. What we have to be mindful of is a center that's opening up with a fancy new technique, but their team may not have been in place treating with that technique for as long a period of time. And so they just don't have the high volume and expertise of decades of experience working together in that technique. And so that's when we get a little bit more nervous.
Proton therapy is actually more expensive anyway.
Mhm.
I attended one of the seminars. It's $12 million to build it. Even a building itself, the magnet itself is like humongous. So,
Yes.
but let us talk about the cost of the care. In cancer care, is the cancer is growing everywhere now. The cost of the care is growing up. How do you manage this? It is very taxing on people on the cancer treatments. How do we address that? And in overall, not you cannot solve yourself, but what kind of things you suggest would solve this problem? I think.
I absolutely agree with you. So if we look at individuals who have been diagnosed with cancer, and we look at their financial situation afterwards, close to 40% will experience financial hardship afterwards because it's not something we prepare for. And certainly not just the cost of the coverage, but the co-insurance, the deductibles, the individual payments, and then services that may not even be covered under the insurance plan, like certain types of physical therapy or other things like that.
So, what
Um,
do you suggest the overall national policy if
yeah,
the cancer is growing in alarming
yeah.
rates? So,
I,
what
I
do you suggest that? What do you suggest in the
I think one of the things that I'm concerned with is that the cost to provide care is growing. But if we look at models like socialized medicine, where it can be delivered for much cheaper, we just have to be mindful of a two-tier system where you can get in at the government rate for much cheaper. However, it could be months before you get in for care. And then those who can pay full out of pocket can get access to care very quickly. So that's that two-tier system is what I would not want anyone to be put in a position to choose among. I do think the cost of medical care has gotten enormous. I can say, for example, when my daughter was born, um, for a very healthy, normal delivery, pop the baby out, go home. I think the bill was over $50,000,
unbelievable?
and we were there maybe 36 hours. I mean, nothing particularly fancy. So I have a lot of
This is a
empathy
God's
for.
given gift. It's a giving a life, right?
Well, but in terms of many patients are not expecting to see these very, very expensive bills, and how do we make it more effective? Absolutely. So I think some of it is how do we manage complications so we reduce those very expensive costs? And how do we really focus on the preventative care aspect so that we're not getting into the expensive cancers that we have to treat later on?
So I wanted to ask you about the cancer among in the among the populations around the world. Is it
Mhm.
still? Are you getting any data that is cancer is much more aggressive for taking in aggressive rates and more prevalent nowadays more than before? Our
So we
detection system went up. That's why we are finding more. What is that? What do you think of that?
Yeah. So to give perspective on that, there's 2 million people diagnosed with cancer in the US every year, and there's 18 million people diagnosed worldwide every year. And in the next 10 years, among US survivors, so we have close to 18 million survivors right now, and that number just in the next 10 years is expected to grow by 24%. And if you look then by 2040, so again, not even 20 years from now, that number will go even higher to about 1.5 times the number of survivors we have right now. So we see promise in that the people who are being diagnosed are able to live longer. But it also means more people are being diagnosed every single year.
That is a great news. And that's maybe we are getting some kind of a new drugs from the space. That's how I'm going to talk about that. And then after that, I will be talking about you're a founder of a company called Bulmier, the skincare that you create a skincare cream that designed for cancer survivors. Let us talk about that when I get back, and you can watch with me along with me the presentation. Okay.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
yeah, that I'm going to both we are going to watch together in the just a minute. Okay. So this is exploring space that the enhancing life is the physical, mental, social, spiritual. Actually, Dr. Madhu Shetti was talking about some of those. We need these things, that space. NASA created a special project called Human Health, and then other agencies from Russian agency called Roscosmos, and then Canadian Space Agency (CSA), and then Japanese Space Agency, and then European Space Agencies. They're all contributing for the human health. They're doing a lot of research on all together. All of them doing an international space station, and they were doing before on their own by their own. But there were clinical trials. Everybody, a lot of doctors say, Dr. Madhu must be doing a lot of clinical trials in their office. But there are clinical trials for interplanetary missions. People who are traveling. Suppose if you are going for a mission to Mars, one of the things they're concerned about vision problem and the other mental health problems. These are the things are very different in situations for the interplanetary problems. Besides all the other things. So they created a clinical trials for that. It's called a Project CTIM, and they get together every year. This is one of the things, aggressively they're getting together and finding out what are the things they can do for the space travelers. But let me so what they find out is a bone loss, bacterial behavior, wound healing, mental health, all those other things. Besides these are the things they're focusing on some of the things. So what are the things if they get infected in Mars, they cannot come back here. So wound healing and all those things, accident happen. So they want to find out the solutions for those things. So there is a lot of medicines and drugs coming from different fields. Oncology side, we have cancer drugs. I was talking about radiation oncologist now. One of the thing is, one of the immunotherapy drugs coming from oncology side from space. Neurology is particularly in the autonomic function side, how the nervous system works with the heart and other organs, the behavior, influence of the nervous system with the other organs. And then cardiology rate is heart rate variability is one of the well-known things, came from space itself. Psychiatry is a mental health conditions. What the loneliest place on the not on the loneliest place in the universe is not the planet yet for humans. It's actually space missions. That's when they go on, astronauts go there. That's the loneliest place. So, what are the things coming from the space? The diagnostic therapeutic devices are coming, quite a bit of them, and then pharmaceutical. And then there is another field that people don't know about it, photoceuticals they call. It's interesting, right? It's a photoceuticals. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the story of the photoceuticals. Is a Dr. Niels Finsen, I think is a doctor from Denmark in 1800s. They found out that you can treat some of the wounds, some of the diseases, infections through light. Just not the sunlight, just through the artificial light you can treat. That's what he thought, and he proved it. But he got the Nobel Prize for that. Strangely, he himself was not believing himself his own discovery. Then he himself had questions about his own discovery. In fact, he won the Nobel Prize for his discovery. But that was not a popular. Because the reason is the light cannot pass through the skin. You just stop the skin, it
Mhm.
stays, and that's why reflection comes out. That's why you can say I could able to see you because it reflects everything. But there is a biophysicist from Tina Karu from the Soviet Russia, the Russian, Russia is a country of Russia. What she did was she come up with a new theory and then experiment that lights can treat some diseases. It can enhance the aging process. It can reduce the aging process and all those things that she came up with the new ideas about that, and she proposed some of the new theories about that, and then she proved some of the experimental evidence. She submitted some of the peer reviews, but NASA did not take it serious, but they wanted to see it how it works, and they gave it to a study to Ron Ignatius, a businessman, well less known businessman from Wisconsin. Is Ron Ignatius. His name of the company is Quantum Devices, and they gave him a small contract to see if they can affect the plant's growth. The light, the artificial light, can stimulate the growth of the plants. That is a small contract he got Ron Ignatius. So he hired some people. He's working on to find out if the plants are working, the lights, the LED lights, particularly light emitting diode lights, those lights, a particular frequency. So what they found out is very interesting thing happened. It's a byproduct of that experiment is that they're working on the plants. They have a lot of vibrations on the hands, right? So they're working with the light and the hands, and then one thing they found out, astonished to their astonishment, it's getting healed faster than normal things. They're getting a lot of so it was healing. These lights are helping them accelerate the healing process on the abrasions on the hands because they're working on the plants. The abrasions come from the thorns from the plants. So what they did is interesting thing they did. They reported to the NASA. NASA wanted to take a second look at it and then say what they want to find out. They want to look at the second look. That's what they found out. Very interesting thing. It reduced the photo treatment. The light treatment can reduce the oxidative stress on the cells. On the cells have stressors, pollutants, heavy metals. These are one of some of the stresses on the cell behavior. So that can be, mediated through the light therapy. That's what they came up. So they found out something interesting in their discovery. So that is the beginning stages of the second one is they named it as a pharmaceuticals. So Ron Ignatius died. He did not continue that thing. One of his employee started his own company. It's called Multi Radiance Medical. It's called. It's in Chicago. It is a photos. They named actually pharmaceuticals. That's what they did was they created a super pulse laser technology that is creating a light therapy to do that, to create that anti-aging process. And these are all. So they actually, if FDA approved recently fibromyalgia, they approved it for the pain treatment for the red therapy. The light therapy is approved for the FDA approved for it. That's very interesting. So they're working on to get reimbursements. That's another problem. But the FDA approved for the treatment of light therapy. So that is the story of the pharmaceuticals. They call it a strange name, but there's a new thing coming up. I don't know much about it, but to be honest with you, I need to ask other researchers, and including Dr. Madhu. Photoceuticals is a mechanism of photodynamic therapy. It is coming, they give a contrast agent called a photoframe. They take it and then they eventually they use a light therapy these are photosensitive contrast agent. It goes, I don't know, biofunctional. I think it goes to the tumors and then they expose that tumor to the light and then they blow it up. I think that's one of the treatments there. It's gaining momentum in research side, and that is so light therapy is a serious research endeavor right now. But that is and the another one is woman's health. Is the menopause. More than 1 million a year comes in the woman over 50 comes in the menopausal situation there in the United States. 6 million in the in the whole world. I don't know much about it. I don't understand it. So, but anyway, as a man, but there's hot flashes, chills, and night sweats, and those are things that are causing a lot of problems. So, menopause can cause a lot of productivity in the workplace. So, what they came up with one of the offshoot of the NASA is a glove came from a gloves, the
Mm.
astronaut gloves. It came from that's very interesting. It came high tech fabrics. They came. They work on a phase change. The phase change is suppose water becomes ice to water. That's called phase change. Sometimes the temperature may be same. Temperature could be different. Those kind of things. But high tech fabrics, they created it, and then it's called the temperature stabilizing clothes. These are temperature stabilizing. They are now they gave a contract to a small. She started it. One of the entrepreneur is a startup company, offshoot of spin-off of the NASA. It is the name of the. Now they gave a contract to 51 April. You can buy it now. Those clothes on 51 April for the
Mhm.
menopausal symptoms. It came from NASA. That's a amazing gift for a woman from the space. There is a lot of other devices coming up. One of them is strip test from a shingles. So shingles is a stress. That's my understanding is the stress. One of the chicken pox and the herpes and all those things and diseases come from a stress. The stresses can release these hormones. I think that they can detect. They found out a strip test to do detecting from before shingles break out. So this is a big problem in space. So they wanted to find out if the people are getting stressed out, if they get the indication that they can manage that stress better. So they came up with the strip test came out of the NASA space things. In fact, the next one is vertigo. A lot of middle ear balance, middle ear dizziness comes very with the age and everything, and the vertigo. So that is actually came from a long time ago in 1960s, 70s. Came out from the Russian Mir station. Mir is a same thing like International Space Station. They came from that one. They came up with a new the vertigo machine. It's called Oculus Tim, I think. Uh, then it is a basically training non-pharmacological training to do the balance treatment. They give a balance treatment on the vertigo side. Then the moon imaging processing, the image processing for radiology came from the moon, pictures of the moon. The in Pasadena, just jet propulsion laboratories, they're taking the pictures of the moon. They need to process the images when that image processing software and algorithms. Actually, we are using now they took a lot of iterations, but that started from the NASA itself. Image processing is the origins is the NASA's moon image processing. Mental health, the neurofeedback is one of the I told you the loneliest place on the planet, not on the planet for humans. It is in the spaceship. That is where they found out that neurofeedback machines, Alan Pope is one of the guys that they NASA hired him. The feedback loop can reduce that mental health, improve the mental health, and reduce that mental emotional well-being, increase the emotional well-being. That's the neurofeedback is one of the mental health things came out of the NASA space. That the space pharma, that is a new different field is coming up now. That is a very interesting field. It is a really fastest growing field, I think, in my view. It's a protein crystal growth. You cannot grow the crystals perfect in the space because we have a gravity. Gravity flattens a lot of out. For example, endothelial cells, they cannot stand in the three-dimensional. You can only see in space all three dimensions in the endothelial so that they can understand the behavior. Keytruda Merck Labs they created a Keytruda. She treats a lot of skin cancers. We can ask her. Is a treatment for a melanoma? Is the Keytruda immunotherapy? I think it came from space. They found out the crystallization. They found out the delivery system is much more efficient now because of they understood the crystal mechanisms. They created a crystal in the Keytruda crystal in the space. That is one of the so many other things coming out of the crystal growths. In fact, so proteins, we understand proteins in three-dimensional forms much better than before. So, for example, HeLa cells went to Henrietta Lacks, the immortal woman of, she, all their cells went to space, and then they created new cell lines because of they understood the mechanisms very well. So the next one is the space pharma is increasing. Osteoporosis, Prolia is a medicine that they came out of space. Allergy medicine, EpiPen injector, auto injector is one of them. And then TAS 205 for muscular dystrophy medicines. These are all, they increase the life expectancy. These are all coming out of the space itself. So space is contributing so many things that for the healthcare. But there is another important factor they're working on is improving the shelf life. The for example, in if you go to the Mars or any place, you cannot, the shelf life is, because of so many factors, may decrease, so may come down. So they wanted to increase the shelf life of the medicines, even the counter drugs, over the counter drugs. So that's one of the things they're working on. Even the cold medicine, the pain medicines, all those things, they need to increase this shelf life. One of the formulas they found out is particularly cancer drugs. They need a shelf life much more to be increased. Only thing is, we know example is Pfizer, for example, Pfizer vaccine, for COVID vaccine, it has to be minus 80 degrees Celsius. Some other countries in Africa and India, they cannot afford, they cannot have that kind of infrastructure. You cannot deliver this kind of Pfizer vaccines. So you need a room temperature vaccines to be there. So that's a big challenge. That's what the space is working. NASA is working on, International Space Station, National Laboratory they call. They are working on the shelf life. What they do is they put a centrifuge, and then they can suspend these medicines in permanent suspension, so they can do one of these solutions. They wanted to find a new molecules, new things, everything, new medicines for that. But so if anybody wants to learn a space medicine, it is a 6 aerospace medicine clerkships for 4 weeks available from the NASA itself. If you can apply, all the doctors can apply. Any internal medicine doctor, family practice, emergency medicine, ophthalmologist, they're all eligible to apply for the 4 weeks clerkship in the aerospace medicine by NASA. And then Mayo Clinic and other centers, University of California, I think Berkeley, they offer space medicine fellowship as a 1-year program. So check it out, that one, people who are interested in this one. Then, so the first aid kits, I want to talk about you can do surgery in the space. You can do, that's very different. You see that the surgeon is tied up. We have to be tied up. That's a very, very important, because you can fly around everywhere. Appendicitis, gallbladder surgeries, you can do that in the space right now. That the international, they can do those surgeries now. They have an MRI there. Then the challenges are needles actually and scissors. They can see because of the microgravity. There is no zero gravity. There is a gravity always present. It's a microgravity. So they can shoot like a bullet. These needles. So you got to be extremely careful about the handling the needles. Burial manual. If somebody dies, they won't tell you. If you see the Gravity movie, that's basically they push him out of into the space, most likely. But that is sad part. Then they take a lot of pain, sleep, cold medicine, same with the over-the-counter drugs here that we see. They wanted to increase the shelf life for all of those things. So that's very important for us. And birth control pills, if there is a space hookup, they can do the birth control pills, for example, for some woman there, So, that Sophia Young can tell, Dr. Sophia Young, she talks about quite a bit about birth control pills from Stanford. Yeah. So there is a NASA, human health is tremendously contributing to so many things. Telemedicine, disease models, psychological stress responses, nutrition, cell behavior, all of them are coming to light because of space. Space medicine bringing benefits to humanity. It is one of the frontiers of medicine, in my view. So the small facts, I'm going to give it to you before I leave, before I bring back Dr. Madhu Shetti. Space is a completely silent. There's no, you cannot hear from each other. So people know that. But anyway, spacesuit costs about $12 million. It's not cheap if you want to get a spacesuit. So the only thing you can get the closest to spacesuit is the 51 Aprils for the menopausal symptom. That is the cheapest one you can get. The sun's mass, actually, we even a physicist, I don't have that understanding of this one. The sun's mass takes a 99 point, almost 9% of the mass of the entire solar system. Only 0.04, 0.1% is basically the rest of the planets. Think about that. You can put 1 million Earths in the inside the sun. So you understand how the solar system, how small we are in the cosmic world itself. So any physician can go, where no man can, where no man has gone before. That is Star Trek slogan. Where no man has gone before, any physician can go now. This is a Dr. Mae Jemison. She's the first African black woman, and she went to the space. So you're all qualified to go there. So thank you for listening. There is attend the fellowship you need. So thank you. And this is let me bring back and ask you a couple of questions and see that what Dr. Madhu Shetti says about all this presentation. Welcome back.
Thank you. Wow, it's so promising to see how many more opportunities there are for physicians who are looking to really make an impact in our communities and novel ways of going about it.
So yeah, absolutely. That particularly your field, immunotherapy, radiation oncology, and
Mhm.
and there's a lot of cancer areas that's coming up. That's what we need is because of the explosion of this cancer
Yeah.
around the world.
And you hit upon one very important condition, which is as we get older, the number of adults who have osteoporosis is quite significant. And having technology and being able to test things out in a space environment in terms of the impact on the bone health is very important and relevant for developing therapies to be able to prevent those kind of side effects. Because if your bone health is not good, it can be very disabling. And imagine living another 20, 30 years and not having good bone health and losing that independence that we each cherish. It's critical to find innovative ways to prevent those challenges.
What I understand in space is that bone is the biggest bones are the
Mhm,
biggest effect of the in the space travel.
mhm,
So they do 2.5 hours of exercise, all kinds of exercise they do.
mhm.
Interesting. Dr. Madhu Shetty, that you are the founder of your entrepreneur besides the radiation oncology, that's day
Yeah.
job. Then you're a founder of a company called Balmier. And
Yes.
tell me what is the meaning of the Balmier? What is the company
Sure.
do?
Sure. Balmir is comes from two words, balm, meaning like a salve or balm that you apply to the skin to soothe it, and mere, like the mere essence of, or what's the least amount you need. Oftentimes, the skincare products that we have available have a large number of chemicals, and I wanted to create products that don't have a lot of allergens or irritants to the skin, because when patients go through chemotherapy, radiation immunotherapy, they can have very severe skin reactions both during the treatments and then for the years afterwards. And we just didn't, I couldn't find good products that were based on scientific evidence, as well as having the effectiveness in terms of scientific evidence, but then also having the safety profiles in terms of removing allergens or other chemicals that can trigger things like migraines, nausea, vomiting, or irritative skin reactions. So that was our impetus really to start the company. And while I was going to school at Stanford and working at the business school, there we were very blessed with a whole team of colleagues who said, "Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. My mom went through this, or my uncle went through this. How can I help you? Because I may have connections in this area or that, and I would never do something it by myself. But if you will help spearhead this, and each individual will bring their talents towards this goal, we can potentially solve some of these problems." And I think the critical factor that individuals often don't think about is when you go through chemotherapy, radiation treatments, and we have to draw out the treatment time because the skin has broken down. it can actually impact your overall survival. So it can be anywhere of 5 to 10% drop in survival for every week that you are delaying your treatment. So it is actually very critical that we have good products to help protect the skin during the treatment so that we can optimize for overall survival, but so we can also optimize for long-term outcomes. Meaning, if you survive your breast cancer, but now you have so much scar tissue that you can't move your neck, or if you can't raise your arm, then you're probably not going to be able to drive or take care of yourself for the many, many years afterwards as a survivor. So, how do we make sure that we reduce those disabling side effects by giving patients access to products at a critical time in their life?
Scar tissue is the biggest problem, right? It actually it can delay because of radiation exposure. It can delay the timing of the next phase of the treatment. So you're saying that is a big, it is a lot of people
So
don't
when
know about this kind of thing. They think it
Right.
is not a is a serious factor, right?
Right. So let's say someone is going through radiation treatment. As they go through, let's say, a 6-week course of therapy, the first 1 to 2 weeks, everything seems fine. Week 3 or 4, they start to notice, oh, I notice some irritation, some burning, tingling. And then by week 5 and 6, you can see open sores or open wounds. And at that point, it can get very severe for certain individuals. And we can potentially have to um, plan for a break in treatment so that the skin can heal before we continue with treatment. The big challenge there also is the fact that radiobiology works on killing the weakest cancer cells first. So in week 1, 2, 3, we're killing the weakest of those cancer cells. By the time we get to week 5 or 6, it's the most aggressive of the cancer cells that are still left. And that's exactly when a patient may go on break, and those very aggressive cancer cells have time to grow back. So that's part of why when we see patients go through a break, in the overall survival outcomes, we see that makes sense radiobiologically, right? Because the most aggressive of the cancer cells did have the chance to live at that very tail end of their treatment. So it does make a big difference. And for me, it's very important at a personal level because if you look at a white woman and a black woman who's diagnosed with breast cancer, there's upwards of a 40% difference in cause specific survival, meaning what's the probability of dying from that breast cancer? A black woman has a 40% higher risk, partly because you're diagnosed at later stages and you require potentially a bigger volume that needs to be treated and a higher total dose that needs to be treated. But then you can also have these skin reactions that happen. So, again, at that tail end, giving time for a break allows for those cancer cells to grow back. And so, part of our mission is to try to keep the skin as healthy as possible so patients can complete their treatment without that window for cancer cells, especially the most aggressive ones, to be growing back. And hopefully, as longer term solution to be able to improve that overall survival outcome. Um, that will still take years to get the data. But for now, we've really focused on how does using our products impact the quality of life of survivors while they're going through treatment, in terms of the itchiness, the bleeding, the pain, the irritation, those kind of symptoms, which can be tremendously decrease their quality of life.
You made an excellent point. That's first time I came to know. The weak cells are the first one the cancer kills. The
Mhm.
aggressive cells remain intact. They are the ones who cause a problem. If you delay treatment because of the scar tissue, that could cause a lot of serious threat to the life itself, right?
Yeah.
That would.
So I would separate scar tissue from wound healing because the scar tissue will set in quite a bit afterwards. But what
Okay.
I really deal with is more those open wounds at the
Open
end of the
wounds. Okay.
treatment. The scar tissue can happen for weeks to months to years afterwards where it sets in. And that's where we see the loss of mobility for patients.
That is a truly a great innovation that's required. Actually, we should be. That is one of the you need to be drumming about that kind of thing. That is
No.
very important. All the radiation oncologists must know about around the world about your that treatment cream. Actually, it can much accelerate the process.
My I feel really blessed to have had incredible teachers and incredible colleagues who have supported my vision and who have helped in every of their individual talents to forward the causes because all of us are looking at advancing the the field of oncology and advancing the community. We can only do so much with software, with devices. We have to think of novel ways that we haven't thought about before, and how we can make big advances for people. Because the reality is, more and more of us are going to be living with cancer. And if you're going to live with cancer, the first thing people ask is, I want to make sure I have a good quality of life with it. And so that's really our mission: make products that help you get through the treatment. And then for the years afterwards, how do we reduce those side effects that often happen from treatment? And not just for cancer survivors. There's many individuals who have autoimmune conditions or other conditions because they may have, for example, psoriatic arthritis, Crohn's disease, other things where they are receiving pretty strong systemic medications, and they have skin challenges as well.
Does this insurance cover this the cream, the treatment of
Yeah.
the cream?
So our products do not require a prescription, so they are not specifically. So the part of why we did it this way is to make it accessible for anyone.
Okay.
I didn't want someone to be in a situation where they would only be able to get it as a prescription and then potentially have to pay thousands of dollars. I didn't think that was fair, and it's not a uh, equalizer, so to speak. I wanted products that anyone would be able to reach, regardless of their zip code, and have access to. Now, some of our products are already covered under FSA money, so at least you can pay for it with pre-tax dollars.
Okay. So where they can reach you? How can they buy from the
Yeah.
population?
So we are doing some of our test runs for the website. You can always check us out at balmir.com. We do have a wait list from there. So the individuals who join onto the wait list will have first access to our initial batch of products. And we're always looking for feedback and partnerships. So if there are organizations who'd be interested, we're always interested in learning more. We also made a decision from day one for Balmir that we will give a percentage of our profits to organizations, nonprofits that help cancer survivors with more of the day-to-day things. So, for example, close to 40% of cancer survivors experience financial hardship, and they have difficulty with paying things like the electricity bill or water bill. So partnering organizations that can help pay some of those things that are not covered by your insurance, but make a big difference for individuals who are looking at every dollar that's going out the door.
Not only you're a great physician, you're a true innovator in the sense that you understand the human suffering and you're watching in the first hand. It's a truly an honor to talk with you, Dr. Madhu Shetti. It's a truly an honor.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and for teaching me so much about space medicine.
Thank you so much.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it